Nkonya wo fidie so na yede bi besomo enen sema de ba no COVID-19 edimu akotini ya enye asem keto akra sanso ene bebo awremu e wo Supreme Court na akwakoye ede tosumi no Supreme Court ede tenase e wo abaye to no fie mienu ene aduonu eso no yede mu nsem esomo na COVID-19 mu nsem ayede mamo no na nadada kwa Akufo-Addo ede ato edwase oguso a ene wona womo eye COVID-19 vaccine no e bonkomo na wahwese vaccine o my konkron Ghana yensu yensa bekan biye.
That the virus is very much with us, so we cannot afford to abandon the enhanced hygiene and safety protocols that ensure we are faring much better than many other countries, including some well-advanced developed countries. If we do not adhere,
Sa enso ena Dr. Anafi wano ena oyo penny kwansefo a COVID-19 task force ayewo ewo mema say no wada anono wono so akasa ede afa ensem no ho
that we are communicating complexity. We are communicating a constantly evolving situation, uncertainty. It's therefore important that the communication is regular, truthful, simple, transparent, and using media that people can relate to.
Yabe concern from ne concern from so another bambofo opposite one crime womo achi nipa be say 100 a womo COVID-19 protocols no womo eni so yebeka ya nanado kwa Akufo-Addo na update number 22 no no de to dwa say enforcement no be adwuma pa na ne opposite achi nipa 100
and have been able to arrest 97 persons who were not wearing the face mask. We arrested these persons around the Tudu area, railways, CMB, Parisco, and its environs. What we observed was that when these people come into town, and it's either they have the face mask, yet
in some way any afufro pia COVID-19 some de ekoso e wo school so awdo mu aproboy boy you know yede bi ebeka ho ne yede asomo na afenso yesade makorem e wo Supreme Court and the nsem no se de sikoye ye no yetimi e de asomo oti enka e wo modernghana.com Zeno Radio sa enso ene tuning sa enso ena other social media platforms ni nyina okwa wonsa ebeka yen afei ene ensem no emu enchemu enie COVID-19 aba ene yan abetna na eno ena mpanifo guso a womo ebo ho dawro se yenhwe na yeni protocols awdo no so se ne be ya yensan wremu lockdown ebiewu COVID-19 asada ne ho a na hosio foforo afa no enya asem keto akra enti ene dai Dr. Anafi Asamoah ba wano ena oye coordinator ede ema Ghana's COVID-19 response programs no na no ena ode ato edwase sede ensem no esi ekono yenhwe se bibibiara yede beto enframemu no yenhwe se ebedi adanse na eye no kre papa na no ena ochire mu se ene a akoye ebra bibia yede eto tintanfidie so na yabo ho dawro no COVID-19 ensem enso yemo ehon dawro afenso or draw attention chiremu se COVID-19 no da so a ewo yemu a fidie kwa ena ekoso ewo my konkron Ghana mu.
The challenge here is that we are communicating complexity. We are communicating a constantly evolving situation, uncertainty. It's therefore important that the communication is regular, truthful, simple, transparent, and using media that people can relate to. In our world of 24-hour breaking news, where everybody is potentially a photojournalist, information and disinformation is also common. Leadership with compassion. It is said, without passion, nothing gets done. But without compassion, the wrong things get done. In a crisis, one is bound to hear different voices. Some of these voices will be noises, but a segment of the population will remain voiceless Leadership that constantly seeks the most marginalized and most vulnerable and amplify their voices. Leadership that has a commitment to upholding human rights in times of crisis, civil liberties and freedom of expression and a free press are most important. So is the rule of law. But leadership that also has the ability to monitor, to evaluate and change course appropriately, ability to accept and deal with criticism, and the humility to admit mistakes and not to demonize people's opposing views. It is said it's in crisis that you see leadership at work. Good leadership provides direction, offers transparent framework for making decisions, makes sense of what is happening, understand how people feel, protect the poor, and persuades the collective to take collective action. This brings me to my fourth point, the crucial rule of preparedness. The importance of preparedness is not controversial because the philosophy here is that you can only reap what you've sown. But preparedness is not always sexy. And there's always the risk of preparing for the last war instead of preparing for the next war. In the last 20 years, the world has invested heavily in preparing for terrorist attacks, but relatively little in preparing for an attack of the virus. No wonder when COVID-19 arrived, no country was fully prepared. Fortunately, no country was fully unprepared. We show that preparedness is a process and there's always room for improvement. Broadly, what countries need to do to prepare is well known. The challenge is commitment. I'm therefore very pleased that the discussion this afternoon and the whole of tomorrow will focus on preparedness. So instead of going to bore you with a long list, let me just briefly highlight a few areas where we've been most exposed and where intensive care capacity, self-capacity.
Yay, Dr. Anafi Asamoah Pan, ena woye coordinator the Ghana's COVID-19 response programs. Nenka ena yete yeno. Na mede to wanim said Supreme Court and Semno. Say the Supreme Court omo administered John Dramani Mahama. The 12 interrogatory questions are what they emma yisi no. Say the womo etimi abwegu honoma enye asem keto akra. Eno enton ten enso ye baba COVID-19 no emu na yemfa court de no entwa mu ansa sa 12 questions no ena Supreme Court abo egu a afen so eno enton ten no case or the court enrada say Mami Jane Mensa awoye abato commissar ne results or the two judge ewo kasamfoni so no wanyintum se woye enfomso eno nti wo metna Ghana yen television so na afei wo admit se enfomso kese pa ena oyeye ni nyina ene sen owe percentages a yede eto edwa John Dramani Mahama de unyaye sanso ena parties a wodo ni nyina nyaye no yekeka boma ebro oha 100% eno enti NDC one team no ede ato edwa koda court se court enhye maami no magina kasamfoni so na asem no onsa mesesana no se we yemfomso kese pa yeyi eye ensem no a NDC team ede ekoye nanso lawyer de man na adodan ko ekufuado san enso na lawyer ono so gina mu ede MIC ede to dwa se sa ensem no enya de se wo mo eni eje ho wo mo oposu sa motion ye pa enye asem keto akra nanso ene dey Supreme Court ede abeto edwa se sa ensem a NDC ana John Dramani Mahama ene ne dom eka no eye ade bia wo mo esoso a enye yekura na Supreme Court enso etu asem a enedai womo etna so no ede akwa se nyame adom ochina busumi da etoso edu eduno 20 busumi da etoso eduno 2021 nyame adom ochina nonkron ebop anopa nonkron pepepe womo besa atna ensem no eso.
We are opposed to this application. because we rely on all the depositions in our affidavit in opposition. Lords, with respect, the answers to the questions being sought are in the petitioner's own petition, the answer filed by the first respondent and also the answer filed by the second respondent. My lords,
any outi yewra Justin Amenuvo were a lead counsel at the Emma Electoral Commission. Na sa ensem no emu na NDC won legal team no so HM said some Supreme Court they atuju a won boss ensem na go no very very surprising.
Justice said that given the new rules that is CI 99, we could no longer bring an application for interrogatories in result of election petitions. That really is surprising to a lot of us as lawyers, because basically what the court has done is to overrule its own decision in the 2013 election petition without according reasons as required by the Constitution and existing practice and precedent. We think that the court sidestepped the basic issues that were brought before it. We think that the issues were very relevant because they went, they go to the meat, the integrity of the pleadings that were filed, that is the petition, as well as the respective answers. And in fact, if you were listening, counsel for the first respondent.
Well, the real work in court has started. All this propaganda of having won 2 goals to 0. This is the first application that has formally been moved before the court. The application for a televised broadcast had already become moot, but the court had already set in place the procedures for a live telecast. The application for interrogatories was dismissed outright by a unanimous panel of 7. This tells you that the petitioner has a long way to go insofar as this petition is concerned. There are ground rules which have been set for this petition, and the Supreme Court is not going to allow for unnecessary and interminable delays in the hearing of this petition.
Any ITA Dominic Ayeni, one and which them demand JM Sanso and a Dr. Frank Davis on a Sujremo at the Emma and another Danko Kufado one and yet say efa another Supreme Court on Sama etoja efa election 2020 a home petition no ebi ena yede asomo afei yanko ensema ne anoguso aye kano emu metre COVID-19 ensem no emu na nada kwa Akufo-Addo de atojo as manufacturers of COVID-19 vaccine no omo no 18 komo ahwese o my konkro Ghana yenso yensa ebeka enunu bi na afei yede asa ye ho yare de atojo asa yare no eguso a ewo omem hase a enkoye kra.
The virus is very much with us, so we cannot afford to abandon the enhanced hygiene and safety protocols that ensure we were faring much better than many other countries, including some well-advanced developed countries. If we do not adhere to these protocols, all the work that is being undertaken to build Ghana in the face of the global health crisis will fail. Through the advances of science, we now have vaccines which are already being administered in some countries that could help control and eventually end the pandemic. The committee formed by government to recommend the appropriate decision on COVID-19 vaccines has completed its work, enabling government to begin discussions with vaccine manufacturing companies with the goal of ordering the suitable doses of the vaccines for use in Ghana. Details of this will be announced very soon. As I said earlier on in my address, the pandemic has illustrated vividly the need for self-reliance in all areas of social and economic life. It is key Then we also break the cycle of dependence on foreigners in the fields of science and medicine as well. It is not beyond our scientists and pharmaceutical companies, whose knowledge and expertise cannot be questioned, to produce an indigenous or Ghanaian vaccine to combat the virus. They must be up and doing. Chairperson, government supports the 72nd Annual New Year School and Conference and finds the theme and sub-themes relevant and essential to raise, discuss, deliberate, and find answers to important questions related not only to the COVID-19 pandemic, but also to other health and indeed social crises. We're determined to work with all stakeholders to see us through this crisis and all the challenges it has brought in its wake. We've already put in place various measures to protect the most vulnerable in society from the economic effects of the virus, and will continue to work proactively to protect the citizenry from the ravages of the pandemic. Indeed, this too shall pass.
Yei nana adodanko ekufuado ena yetene nka ewo ho na nedai enkran montene so aposifo achi nipa be se wo ha a wo mo COVID-19 protocols no omaye o madwene se wo mo eni so eno ena bambofo etimi atso enipa be se 100 ma kayayefo ene ejodifo toto na ewuma omasa ka omo aboso achese nya asem keto akra na wo hwe messages amanfo de emaye na ebi kire se wo hwejumedi aposifo diye omo nya video na hwe echire mu say COVID-19 a ye bo ho ban na ye enforce law na akra so eka amanfo ebom emo spread yare no enu nti aban no na namo a wo tu efa bambonsem no wo mo ehwe eho enka na no kwasiara na mienu nie ena na adodanko akufu adofropa ede tu dwa se obi a wani COVID-19 hihye no so no ene se emra ne chewa emra no eubedi yenka kaye ho.
In furtherance of this, I have instructed the Inspector General of Police to direct officers, men and women of the police service to ensure the rigorous enforcement of the law on mask wearing at all public places and in public transport. They are also to ensure the closure of all nightclubs, pubs, cinemas and beaches that may be operating in defiance of the law. Assisted by the other secure marketplaces, workplaces, and operators of public transport must conduct their activities in accordance with the hygiene and safety protocols. The wearing of masks in these places is mandatory. Regulatory agencies will undertake random checks to ensure conformity with COVID-19 rules. Should any facility or institution fail to comply with these directives, its activities will be immediately prohibited and appropriate sanctions applied. It is important that I remind all Ghanaians that severe punishments exist on our statute books for persons breaking the law on the mandatory wearing of masks.
Na enum enene dai aposifo ache enipa bese wo ha a wo mo max no na omo enhyeye efiatenke kasa de ma aposifo won krabata e wo enkran
and have been able to arrest 97 persons who were not wearing the face mask. We arrested these persons around the Tudu area, railways, CMB, Faristo, and Eaton Barracks. What we observed was that when these people come into town, it is either they have the face mask, yet they will not put it on. So usually you see them putting the face mask in their bags or in their pockets. So they were all rounded up this morning, and some were made to buy the face mask or take the face masks that were in their pockets or in their bags and wear them. So they have all been brought to the regional police command as we take a decision on them.
Yei mame efiatenge wono ena woton krade ma posifo nkrabata won kran ena yetene ne efa enipa bese wo ha yache wo mo no Ghana fo no bi so ebon komo fa sansem kro na ho
one so say we bona the has and so ebwa ba say yen so ya ni Into the Siena, yes, we know, of market, and yet I was moved because I was studying also what I discarded Akutu. I am going to vote. Ya vote, we are Mussi Yareno, and Waho. Yareno, I don't know my I go to you. I don't know my I go to say, and Mussi knows my sense I save you. I'm a papa and an ecramine. And we said, those by Michelle, I cannot meet me, yes, and be bagging. They are no than Michelle. I have got to turn by the moon, and they are and they put it that day. Said they knew. I said, I will hold them back on my ankle for 2 months. I don't know on everyone. Anyone, it's not my ankle for 2 months. One year, you see, I ran a man also. And say, I tell my most of the answer for school, more point 12. Now, me to John, what time and I'm a franca, my bass and my better time and I'm a poor. I go from me, Banu school. If I know me, Banu or Prassing, said me uncle, and about the whole world. And the amount just as a more big police in the catcher said no smash.
Yei Ghana phobi woman so madwen kire efa cha yache enipanom bi ene afi COVID-19 protocols ene hon sensem ehono na sa ensem kroya eho ena Dr. John Krugu weye public health advisor de ma Royal Tropical Institute eho ena odi ni juma na no de ato edwase ohwe ensem no se de si kwa amafo kirem se Ghana yen weda no se de wi mo hye esi efa no eno ana ama sesei COVID-19 no entimi antretre fa edikan no amanfo de ato wo mo etrima protocols awodo no wo mo eniso no wokyire mu ekire sesa ensem no eye ensem bia no krabia enim a se Ghana ya hwe na ye ni COVID-19 ensensem no so a ene ebekoso akosoro na enye no kreda se COVID-19 no ye wombia poti bia wo mo ho ena tese itimi efansin yie anasa no oden tese de amanfo eka no se no krabia enim ewo eho na ne problem ene se aposifo echi nipa bese wo hai osaka omo egu baako ka omo efo aso achese ni nyina yes the spread of COVID-19 no enti aban no enhwe na wonyi woni directive no onhwe no mu eniso eyie saa pepepe nyese ebia wokọ akogina konya platform na wakasa fellow Ghanaians no nko a wakasa ewia ene protocols awodo no wonhwe na amanfo eniso
a bit worried when we make a quick reference to the climate. Okay. Because if you study the progression of the transmission of the virus, take for example South Africa, they have also reached a peak transmission. If you look at the time their transmission took place, this was during the summer in South Africa, and at that time the temperature in Victoria was the same as the temperature in Ghana, and yet they were able to get into an escalation period. So I think that the evidence as provided by WHO has not come to any conclusion that climate is playing a major role in slowing down or stopping transmission. I think we have to be careful when we make a quick reference to climate and keep the impression to the general public that because we are in the tropical parts of the world, we are somehow protected against COVID-19 infection. That kind of impression is part of what has brought us to where we are today, because at the moment, the biggest problem we have is a general low-risk perception towards the COVID-19. So people think that they are not at risk. And once people think that way, that is what we saw that people are beginning to not wear the mask, to not use the sanitizers, to not take personal measures to protect themselves and to protect their loved ones from COVID-19 infection. When you have such a general low risk perception, one of the key things that we need to do, and I am okay with the President's directive to the Ghana Police Services to enforce a mask wearing, but that needs to also go along with risk communication. People need to appreciate and to understand that we are at risk, and we need to downplay this general concept that because we are in a tropical zone, we are somehow insulated from getting infected. and therefore people can begin to behave in a more risky way, not wearing masks, not using sanitizers, and not being careful in terms of gathering, and that is a problem. And your colleague just forwarded the video to me, and when I watched it, that was my worry, that you can even see that low risk perception is also within the Ghana Police Service. To what extent they appreciate that even in an attempt to enforce the wearing of the mask, they are also putting themselves at risk. They are also getting too crowded. They are also exposing even more to infection. So until we can, as a population, appreciate that we are all at risk, and that needs to be appreciated at the personal level, that each of us know that we are at risk, and therefore we need to take the measures to protect ourselves and to protect the general public.
Osanso de afuto emo my konkron Ghana say ye nyina ye hwe na protocols awdo na ye ni so afin so aban no on hwe na bambon sem and enforcement on mask wearing no enye ejuma yipa enye asem ketwa kra sanso eno de to etwa sa aban no sem kan obeka bia no won hwe no ntu na mo na enye ejuma ode to dwa echire mu sa aban no empe wo mo munim kasa omo betimi akasa ede achire Ghana for dodo na no mo enye gidie na protocols awdo no so wo mo etimi ediso
the public health education to experts, and I think that is important. Sometimes we make the assumption that it just tells that COVID-19 is here, that is enough. For example, my suggestion, the task force, the National Task Force on COVID-19, and probably to the president, is that we need to change the faces of the people communicating about COVID-19. Because what happens in this communication is that when people become used to certain people, to certain faces, to certain voices, people don't take what they say serious anymore. And if you follow the news very well, then anytime the president appears to speak, and the moment he says fellow Ghanaians, when he's finished, ask what did he say? And a lot of people tell them they help fellow Ghanaians, but they are not able to really follow what he said because somehow people assume that they know what the president is going to say. And so they don't listen and they would not act on what they are hearing because they just say, oh yes, again the president is coming and we don't going to talk about COVID-19. And that is not even hear him when he talked about a new strain that has been identified. And that is just one of the strategies. Because with communication, you cannot just use one method or one strategy. The second thing I want to say is with communication is a specific type of communication. People need to appreciate that they are at risk. And that is not just providing information or giving people knowledge. It is not as if people don't have the knowledge about COVID-19. People do. And people know that you can be at risk if you don't. But people need their perception of risk. It needs to be raised. In other words, they need to come to the position that I am personally the one who is at risk. And not the other person, and not the other guy, but I am the one who is at risk. And that kind of communication is a specific type of communication, which is why it is important, and I agree with you, the breaking down of what the president does. In addition to that, we really need risk perception communication experts who can, and not just in general terms that it is on television, but we also need to break this communication down to get closer to people, that public health officials in the various regions, in the various districts, to be able to get out there and do mass public communication, public education, and also speak to people. That also includes using other strategies like role play, like even people certain experience that it is possible that they can get contracted to the virus, and people begin to appreciate those specific methods that public health officials need to get out there. And from the video I saw, I even want to recommend that that kind of risk communication needs to start with the security agencies.
Yeah, Dr. John Kruger, one and where opinion what omo eshe yewra John Kruger nimte efa where public health advisor Royal Tropical Institute and yetenenka ehono na yetwa ensem no eso Dr. Anthony Mensah wano eno ye openi kwankyerefo a woda Ghana ye na bibidro awodo ano wode ato edwa se bibidro no nso omo ewo de betimi boost ye immune system ni ye pa betimi aboa ama enkwamo na we mu no eno so etimi ene COVID-19 asojafo no edi ni nyonyo no eno nti yenkoso a ne mobo se bibidro ne bi
obi anya dua ye de a cure COVID-19 across the world ye nya bi no meaning say viral infections and it goes to the core of your immune system. It is the immune system no one there. A buama utumi wakasa body immune system to fight against those infections. And a lot of these products are our market national products are registered on as immune boosters. Now herbal medicine monososo your particular herbs so antiviral properties so. And you will be so the ability to, as it were, fight against the virus in terms of its multiplication. So, Emma virus no entering and also in the never my immune system that me aquatia yarawa.
Yeye Dr. Anthony Mensah ena yetenenka ewo hono na ekiobi edebetu jwa sanye PPs no nye krado no ka hu be hia sa ban ebeto schools a ye bie no emu opani a ye frɛ no Peter anti ono ena wode sa adwenkyere yi ebaye wono no ye opani kwankyerefo a wowo Institute of Education Studies wode eto ejwa Neno ena Professor Opoku Amankwa wono so ye pani kwankyerefo da Ghana Education Service ano ekyirem sesa ehye no yewra Peter Anti wasans oye director edema Institute of Education Studies no sa enso ena natfo mo nsema mo kase enclose school no one day when we mo enya adwene ye kra na nye ono nko sa enso ena cops private schools won heads no omoso ede ato eja se ensema amanfo eka no eye ade bia wono mo enya adwene se COVID-19 no ohwe na se untimi emwa ema untimi protect ana protocols how don untimi ene so a eni kwa se o suggest se ye to school mu na so why crowd say umpese obeko school and one so atwere akoma ban se wonko school na omotra afie no eno ma ne omodi ni ye papa na so Professor Opoku Amankwa ye opani kwa for da Ghana Education Service ano e de ato edwase woni obia enye adwene se yebesa close down schools.
Yeah, this is welcome continue na na ha ne bia no ya bin ka na eto into no oto bonwai into yako na so atito no me ka se bi ya he no ka se ni da me ni na we to see the fa to see the fa ni na da me ni o bi sha an de ko ya ka and the we say and yeah, teacher training, Kayani, private, yeah, can be my
Professor Opoku Amankwa opani kwankyerefo da Ghana Education Service ano ena yetene nka ewo ho na ne kasamafo eye Cassandra Chum Ampofo also de atojo ase abanguso a ede enoma no eko enkro outdoor titru enkro nketwem se womo so ensa ebeka PPs no na womo ede akon ede yetia COVID-19 no
distribution in possible districts, I'm very sure that the village corner kind, I'm sure that by now, maybe a two district for because Kama airport and about the when you come back liquid soap and try not to be a co-art on. Some 3 4 and 4 and some 2 4 to almost come out fine to them. It be a coy, it is better for council to number no so and about almost a health finance and a market school CPR with health facility. And also so that one must say, if I say, in another suspected case here, aspects, so if a teacher for now, so they know my dear and some aspects, at the moon. One PPs maybe a senior medical time, and I'm quite well. Airport, in fact, if district people who they just do whatever.
Mame Cassandra Chum Ampofo Kasade Magana Education Service Nenka ena yete yena na Peter Anti enso ne some of the two so no obi anya adwene se PPs no konko dru enti yentu school mu no o se da na atefo na omunya adwene da
across the length and breadth of the country excellent is Islano school people almost the full complement of their PPEs now, and that is a very difficult situation for both the students and the teachers and also their parents because needs animal we need the likelihood that will be a best friend among them very high. Anything in the Ghana education and education a bit similar and almost suspending the rule for 1 or 2 weeks, then making sure that the PPE gets to the schools as an homology. What has happened simply shows that they did not plan well.
Mr. Nia Muti Peter Anti, one on your penny quantity for the Institute of Education Studies was suggested says the PPEs no enkonko druya any enhwene into school for 1 or 2 weeks ebi yenyina so ne emfa ene enwumre trending news ni nyina ensi meeting Edward Donko Papa Smiley sanso ena King David ena menua Prince ena boaye ema ene enwumre trending news no eba wo akwemu modernghana.com Zeno Radio sa enso ena tuning any platforms ahodo aka ena onsa eka sa ene news nyame eya adoma ochina dia kan bia nso ebeba betena fidi korea so na yede asomo meeting once again Edward Donko imamu nyina good night.